Behind us is a wood burning stove built mostly out of scrap materials, so mostly free, and it is for camping and other outdoor activities. Quick disclaimer, I'm not encouraging anyone to do this. I'm just showing you what I did to make a camp wood stove. This is experimental. These materials may not be what a person should actually be using for this. This stove was made for outdoor use only. Something like this should never be used in a building or an enclosed space of any kind. If you do try this, it's at your own risk. Wear gloves and any other safety equipment that you think you might need, because metal can cut you. This video is made for entertainment purposes only. This is just what I do and how I do it. Hope you enjoy the video. So we're using scrap materials to make this stove. This is a tent stove. So I have a piece of metal roofing, scrap piece. It's about 3 feet long. I need to start by cutting that down. All right, first things first, we're gonna cut this down. It's about 3 feet long, maybe a little longer, but we don't need it to be that long. I think 24 inches would be fine. Get a mark on that side. Get a mark on that side. And then we connect the dots. So you'll notice this is old roofing material. It's ribbed roofing, and I'm going to use that. I also have some HVAC stuff. All right, this stuff's kind of hard to cut by hand with, I just have straight snips. It's not impossible, just takes a little longer. Okay, so from here we got ribs in this piece of metal, and I think I want the ribs to be turned toward the inside. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put my bends here so that the top of the stove and the bottom of the stove will have a rib, a flat, and a rib, and then the side will just have the flat part. All right, just getting started. One thing that I think is going to be easiest is get the edge that we want to bend on the corner of the workbench, and then clamp it down with a board on top. All right, now that we're set up, I'm going to start bending this down. I want to maintain this rib, so I don't want to screw up the rib, but I just want to press on the back of it here to try and bend this down more. I want the rib to go out at a right angle from the back, which is staying on the workbench. I think that's about as far as we can hammer and bend this way. I have to unclamp it, and from here I'm going to have to see if I can do the rest by hand. All right, that's what we're looking for with that first rib. It's gonna bend in there kind of like an L shape. Trying to maintain the rib, just get it to bend. All right, the little trick with the board, I don't think I can do. This rib is actually preventing me from doing that. I need to crease it better here using the edge of the workbench. So I think I'm just going to use the hammer to hammer it down. Alright, that's what it looks like so far. Need to make the next bend down here in this one, just below this rib. That's it so far. Next crease right here. Alright, that's the stove so far. That's basically it. Now need to attach these down here. I'm going to use self-tapping screws to attach this on right here. Just self-tapping screws made for metal. Going to put them in with a driver. And just for those who don't know, just your standard bit holder actually fits most of these sheet metal screws. There's usually two different sizes on these screw heads, but yeah, the typically just your standard bit holder will fit that screw. Hey, look, there's a hole already started for me right there. Guess I'll use it. Okay, so somebody might wonder, how many screws do you put in this? And I don't know. I'm winging it, making it up as I go. Once again, this is not the kind of stove that you would ever use indoors in a house or anything like that. This is not going to be an airtight stove. This is going to be a camp stove for a hot tent or something like that. And even then, this is at your own risk kind of thing. And how many screws did I put in here? I just put in 3. When I put my end caps in, I'm also going to screw through those, so that's going to help strengthen when I put that end cap on. So for right now, I think 3 should do it. So which side's going to be the top, what's going to be the sides, etc. Well, this is the shape of the stove. It's a rectangle. This will be a top, bottom, and sides, obviously. Now, the way the human mind works, a lot of people would think this ugly edge that we have here, this lap, should go on the bottom so I don't have to look at it. Well, I don't know. In my mind, I'm thinking that myself, but then I thought, well, say coals happen to get in this, if this was on the bottom, you know, there is a possibility, not much, but perhaps something could get through. So I want to keep my seam up. It's also good to note that, once again, this is not an airtight seal at all. But the way a stove works, when this whole thing gets good and hot, the smoke will find its way up through the chimney, and once the chimney's hot, it'll just tend to draw. And so there won't be very much, if any, leakage through here. There's also materials that you can get for stovepipe to seal up cracks and things on stovepipe, etc., and seams like this. This is what something like that's made for. And if it's a problem, I could just get some of that. It's kind of like a caulking. I forget what it's actually called. It works similar to a caulking, comes in a tube, and you just put it on there just the way you do caulking. Any stove supply or fireplace supply place should have it, or look online. The next thing to do would be figure out where our stovepipe's going to go, cut the hole for the stovepipe, and get that ready, make the ends. Actually, I might hold off on the stovepipe. We'll see. Making it up as I go. Alright, how big's our stove so far? Well, we made this about 24 inches in length, and it varies. It looks like 24 1/4, thanks to that straight cutting. This way so far is 11 inches. Up and down is about 7 inches. Not huge, but we're heating a tent. Hey, our mugs have arrived. We're unboxing some mugs that we had ordered from Teespring. Success is doing what you love. That's a pretty good job.
Sorry I missed your call. I was on the other line.
I like how they're packaged in here. The box protects them pretty good, and then there's some bubble wrap around it. Live your own dream, not someone else's. We ordered these in these colors, but you can get them in any color that they offer on their website.
For the experienced YouTube play button.
Every fool thinks he is a wise man. Every wise man thinks of himself as a fool. There's something to that saying. My fishing buddies call me Dad. Well, there you go. We offer all 6 of these mugs in our Teespring store, and we chose the different colors. You can get them in any color on their store. We got one of each. We got blue, yellow, white, orange, gray background, and black as well, to see what they look like. And I like them. I'm impressed. I think they've done a good job. Hope you like them too. Check out the links in the description below. All right, it is another day, and just continuing to work on this little camp wood burning stove. So far, probably the easiest part is done. That's making the main body of the stove. I used a scrap piece from a steel roof panel. This is scrap that I just had, so it's free. I already had it, so that's why I used it. Now, probably the more difficult part of the project is going to be the end caps, and you'll see why as we get into it. It's really not difficult. It's probably more difficult than the first part. I do have 2 pieces of HVAC duct that are just little cut-offs, just scrap pieces. So I'm going to flatten these out, and then I'm going to measure them up and figure out how I'm going to make my end caps. And I'll show you that after I flatten these out. All right, so these are the 2 pieces I have, and they're actually of different qualities. This is a piece from, don't want to say the name, big box type builder supply store, and this piece is actually from a HVAC contractor, what they use to install in houses, and the difference in quality is huge. This thing feels very thin. This, very thick, very different, but anyway, both will work. I think that both will work for that. It's just the one is not going to be quite as thick as the other. So I'm going to put the thicker piece probably in the back, because I'm thinking that'll get the most heat, and this piece will go in the front. It'll have more creases in it, I believe. So to get started on flattening them out, basically I think just kind of lay them flat and use the edge of the workbench to try to work them. Trying not to put any creases in, but use it to try to push it flat. Well, that thin piece was really easy to do, but the thicker piece, obviously, I like better. I like it a little thicker, especially for a wood burning stove, if possible. But these are the scrap that I have to work with. Okay, so now that I've flattened both pieces of HVAC duct, and they're now flat. I went ahead and calculated up the end cap, did a little drawing, and basically this right here is what we're going to make. I'm going to draw this out on each piece of metal, and then the one will become the front, which will get a little bit more work done to it, and the other one will become the back. Okay, that's basically all that's to it. Essentially, I drew that. I realized my measurements on the side are incorrect as far as the 7 1/4. That is the internal box size. But I caught that, and other than that, the only other thing that's different is I couldn't get my full 1 1/2 down here because of this lip. I should have started up higher, but I didn't. I used the outer edge, which is already straight, so I wouldn't have to cut more than one edge. So now just need to cut it out and then trace this onto the other one and draw in my cut lines and my fold lines, and then I can get started on bending. Okay, if you realize in the drawing what some of this extra piece is to fold over is to make a nice edge so that there's no sharp edge. You know, it has two ends, you know, the two connecting ends. And this end here, I think I'm going to keep that. I'm going to flatten this down and then make that one of my edges, so that'll be less cutting that I have to do. So I already have a crease in this edge, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now when I trace, I just have to remember to take that part out. So now all that's left to do is to put the folds in the one for the back. And there's just a couple of little cuts to make, and then I can fold it. And then the front one for the front, I'll do the same thing too, but then I'll do a little bit of extra work to make the place for the door. All right, there's the first end cap done, ready to go. And the second one will be the same, but I'll do a little more work in here. I'll have to cut out a place for a door on the other one, and I'll do a couple more extra folds in there so that it doesn't have a sharp edge. And here I'm just putting this in at 1 1/4 and then 2 inches out. So 1 1/4 and 2. So that first lip is 1 1/4 and the second one would then be 3/4. Well, I made a little mistake when I was cutting those diagonals down through here. I actually cut too far, and I've cut my frame back to where it'll meet the stove itself. So I think it'll be all right. Maybe I'll do something. All right, there's the end cap for the other end. Has the door in. You may have seen I cut little L shapes and put in each corner and then creased it back down to help strengthen that, because yeah, I accidentally cut every diagonal all the way down to the corner. So I went a little far. But yeah, those little corners that I put in, that should help fix that, strengthen it up again. Yeah, now I just need to put this on. I'm going to put the door end on, but the back end, I'm not going to put that on until we get the chimney cut out, because I might need to reach in there and do some work. So we're going to put the front on next. All right, this should be pretty simple. These flaps, I got to watch I don't get those caught up in there. You may have seen that these are so easy to bend on this when I was doing most of it by hand. But yeah, basically decide which way I want up, and then slide it on and screw it in place. So I want to screw what I think is the bottom side first. That way it's tighter down, just in case any hot ash would get in there. It's more likely to not fall out. If I'm going to have a gap anywhere, I'd rather have it on the top where there's less chance of ash getting out. Now you remember those tabs that are inside here? I'm going to try, when I screw the sides, to go through those tabs. All right, there you have it. The front is on. You might see these screws sticking up in here. What am I going to do with those? I'll probably actually just leave them there. I could snip them off, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. We'll see. As far as the paint that's on here and on the inside and the galvanized metal and all that, once we burn our first fire, all that stuff will burn off. And basically, we're going to burn in here until everything's off and it's bare metal. And then after that, we'll have to get a stove approved paint for high heat and paint it with that. Well, now that I have the front on, I'm putting a couple extra screws along our seam. So far for this stove build, everything has been scrap materials up to this point. The chimney, however, I don't have any of that. I want to use 3-inch HVAC duct, and so I bought some. I bought 5 pieces of that. 4 I figured were for the chimney, and 1 I wasn't sure if I'm going to be able to fit the chimney directly or if I'm going to have to try to modify one of these pieces in order to make like a boot. They didn't have any starter boot for these where I went to get them, and so I figured I might have to make one, so I got a 5th piece for that. Also, the door. I found they had real cheap an end piece for a duct, and basically pretty close to the size that we're going to need for our door anyways. And I'm out of scrap material to make a door, so I got one of those as well. So far, this stove build is basically been free because it's scrap material or things I already own, like the screws. But yeah, the chimney, the door, and legs. I have to come up with legs somehow. But yeah, the chimney and the door so far are purchased, and that wasn't a big deal. That was like 25 something. Seems to me the best way to figure out where this goes is to just place it and draw a circle around it with a marker, try to cut that out, stay inside the mark as much as possible, because one end of the pipe is flared in, and I don't want to be bigger than this because I'd like to just set it right in there. You have to keep in mind the width of the flange of the end cap. Where's that going to go? Now I need to cut out that hole, and to do that I'm going to need a drill, because this stuff I can't punch through with my shears like I did the end cap. Alright, there I finally got a piece to go in. The hole's pretty tight, but I think what I am going to do is I'm going to cut this piece. I'm going to take another piece, and I think I am going to cut a couple strips here and then stick it in and bend those flanges up around, cut it off up here, and make a sort of a starter collar. You know, I didn't really think about it, but if I'm going to have this much cut off, I could have kept this and made a door out of it. However, the end piece for ductwork that I did purchase for a door is a lot thicker than the pipe is, so it's a heavier gauge, so I guess I am glad that I got it. It's going to make things a little bit more simple. So I thought my cut should be good, and it's pretty good, but it's a little bit off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align it so my top is right, and the uneven part, instead of trying to trim that, that's going to be down in the stove. I'm just going to do this kind of random, not sure how big I should make them. People who do this all the time, they'll take a piece this long, I've seen, and they can just put it together, squeeze it down, and it just goes together. I don't do this all the time, and I'm not that good at it. So for me, I just start at one end, line it up, get it in the groove, and then work my way down. There you go. Simple, pretty easy to do. Just follow along and squeeze as you go. Now that we've got our sleeve in here, our collar, our starter, we'll take our piece we just put together and slip it in there. There we go. And so from here, just add pipes till we get up above the tent roof or whatever we're doing. Okay, a little word about how this stove's going together. In case you don't realize, when you're burning wood, there's such thing as creosote, there's moisture, there's different stuff, and that builds up in the stovepipe. And those things you want to run back down into the stove. What you don't want to do is have your crip end up and your other end on like this, because as it all runs down the inside, it'll run back out onto your chimney. What you want is your round end like this and your crimped end, the end that's fitting inside, to come down and fit into that, just like that. That way any moisture, any liquid is running back down into the stove. So from here I need to put the back end cap on. And what I would like to be able to do is to store my chimney pipe inside the stove. So I want to make sure that I don't push this on too far. I don't think I will. I think it's definitely long enough to store the chimney pipe, but I'm going to make sure. So I'm going to put my chimney pipe in before I attach this. All right, now to put that end cap on. Once again, I'm going to screw first on the bottom because I want the bottom to be the tightest drawn up against. All right, so we're putting the back cap on the stove, the back of the wood stove, and we're having a hard time getting it, actually. It's a better grade material, plus going through the steel roofing, so we're having a little bit different time doing this. It's taken two of us, actually, one to push out on the side and the other one to drill it in. So, all right. Try it there. Stay flat again. All right, let's get one in the middle. Of course, I'm pushing out with a hammer, not with my hand. All right, well, we got the back cap on the wood stove finally. It was a little bit difficult to do. I was having to use the hammer and push out, especially on the top and bottom, to push this metal out against where he was trying to drive in at. So, but yeah, this is the stove so far. We've got it pretty much together. The only thing left to do is put legs on it, put a door on it, and fire it up. Go from there, a few other details. But I think we're gonna stop here, and to finish up this stove, if you wanna see us finish that up and light its first fire in it, check that out on part 2. We're gonna make a part 2 and finish it on there. Well, if you like this video, please share it with your friends.
And like and subscribe.
And if you'd like to receive notifications when we upload the next video, hit that notification bell.
Thank you. See you on the next